So I bought a 2010 Sienna when we moved, and of course the vehicle being 11 years old, 10 years old, it has a little bit of wear and tear. So as you can maybe faintly see, there are some rust spots starting to form, and we're about to zoom in a little bit. So as you can see, that is the hood of the vehicle, and there's clearly some rust spots forming. And rather than let these continue to get out of control, I decided to use another YouTuber, ChrisFix, use his tutorial for getting the rust spots out, painting with a cheap solution, some spray paint, and basically protecting the metal underneath the paint from any further wear so that we can have this vehicle for a long time. And this spot you'll see bare metal, no rust yet, so it would only be a matter of time with the rain and washing the car that it would eventually become a rust spot, and I'm just trying to prevent that. And then you'll see this final spot where rust again is starting to form. So there was a lot of these little marks all over the hood of the car, and again, it's almost has 200,000 miles on it. It's been driven a lot, which is great. I'm glad that it worked out for the previous owners, and I just want to keep it in good shape so that we can use it as well. So without further ado, I'm gonna start sanding, and I hope you learn something and enjoy. I also recommend using some sort of power sander because this really just took a lot of time. It took pretty much the whole day, and just an electric sander from the store would have helped quite a bit. So as you can see, I spent quite a bit of time sanding, which basically took up the whole day. But thankfully, you don't have to make the same mistake I did. You can just go ahead and either borrow someone else's or buy one. Maybe you already have one, and hopefully that just saves you an entire afternoon. It'll probably still take a good chunk of your day. Like, this is a long project, but if you're not doing it by hand, it could definitely spare you quite a bit of time. And I actually ended up changing my technique. I'm just sanding it flat right now, but I just started to angle the block and really just get into the metal and pull out the rust spots. That seemed to be a lot better and a lot easier. For this part, I'm mixing together basically the bonding agent that you put, which helps to protect your metal and also allows for the paint to really stick well. So it was way too hot to use this, and it dried basically before I could apply it, and you'll see that in this next scene. But basically all that happens is I mix it together, which you put the gray part down, and then you put the hardener, and then you mix it like this. And I just keep mixing it, and I think like double-sided tape on the back of the parchment paper would have really helped. Using the parchment paper was nice because everything hardened so quickly that I just threw that part away and got a new piece for each application. But it was kind of hard to get it to sit still, so maybe some double-sided tape would have helped with that. I know in the tutorial video it's a little bit better taped down, I guess. I'm not sure exactly how he kept it better. Maybe it's thicker parchment paper, I'm not sure. But I struggled to keep the parchment paper in place, and this is probably mixed well enough, but I keep mixing, so maybe that's a small portion of the issue. It is a heat related reaction as well though, so you'll see in just a second me struggle with how quickly it dried. So now you can see all the sanding that I did. I probably could have taken it to a place that does sandblasting and just have them sandblast the whole thing, but then I would have had to put bonding agent on the whole thing, and as difficult as it was, if you have an air-conditioned garage in which you can do this for the dust and for controlling humidity and temperature, it would definitely be worth it. I just don't have that, so this is what I was able to use. And as you can see right there, it starts to like dry and basically doesn't apply correctly. So I struggle with this for a little while. I didn't get it all on camera, but yeah, doing this during the middle of the summer was too hot and too humid. So if you can wait, definitely wait. If you have a garage, use that instead. You can see it drying already, but we're skipping ahead and going to paint. I think this is just the base coat paint, and I just want to say I give props to ChrisFix because it's really hard having like paint and bonding agent and all this stuff on your hands trying to work the camera. Maybe he just sets it up and doesn't do anything, like doesn't adjust or doesn't stop it, and just does a lot of editing. I was trying to save myself a little bit of time with the editing, and it just was much more difficult than I had imagined. So basically you're supposed to let the primer dry for 5 to 10 minutes in between each coat. I tried to coat it really lightly the first few passes, and it seemed to be okay, but then when it came to trying to sand it, you'll see having basically 90% humidity when I'm trying to do this was not helpful in the least. So I just put this coat of primer on, and the primer, it looked good for pretty much every step of the process. I was wearing this mask. It has particulate filter and some smell filter. Definitely when you're doing the bonding agent, just to go back to that, use some sort of respirator. It is really nasty stuff, and it says right on the packaging that you shouldn't be inhaling it. So whenever you're painting or using toxic chemicals, be sure to protect yourself and use the correct equipment. I could definitely smell the stuff when I took the mask off, so I was glad I wore it. And I'm just gonna skip ahead a little bit because you saw me paint. Pretty much is painting, and now I'm sanding the primer coat, and it's a wet sand, which is precisely where the issues started to happen. Basically, the primer coat started to wash off of the hood of the car, and so instead of keeping the coat like I wanted to, I basically was stripping all of the paint off. And after you spent this much time sanding, this much time working on it, only to have your paint come off because it's too humid is a little bit frustrating. But like I said, I'll be able to attack this project another time. Supposedly March is the least humid month of the year, so I could potentially do this again in March and clean it up if it needs that. Alright, so this is definitely a $100 paint job. I don't know if you guys can see the details of it, but I did not do a very good job sanding. I think that's okay though, because we saved all this metal from getting rusted out, and it was the wrong humidity, really hot. I didn't spend enough time sanding, but this will get us to the beginning of next year when the weather should be better, and if I want to touch it up again, I can. I think one thing worth noting is how well the paint matching is. I mean, this is basically spray paint from a can that a third party made for me, and I think it matches pretty closely. If I did it again and really concentrated on the sanding, I think it would basically match the rest of the vehicle, which is what you want. So all in all, I say to keep the integrity of the steel, this was worth it, and maybe next time I would just spend a lot more time sanding, take an entire day just to do this part of the job, and then paint it the next day. So I think that's what I learned and what my takeaways are. So hopefully you gained something from this video, and thank you for watching. as a thank you to everyone who stuck around for the end of the video. These are some outtake shots of my thumbnail. So thank you again for watching, and I hope you both enjoyed and learned something. We will see you next time.